please don't go changing everything all at once. It's not going to work out for you.
You're listening to That Music Podcast with Bryson Tarbet, the curriculum designer and educational consultant behind That Music Teacher and the Elementary Music Summit. Each week, Bryson and his guests will dive into the reality of being an elementary music teacher and how music can truly be transformative in the lives of the students you serve. Show notes and resources mentioned in this episode can be found at thatmusicteacher.com.
Welcome back to That Music Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about kind of a touchy subject, especially when it comes to starting in a new school, which is changing school traditions. I want to start by bringing a story from my own high school experience into it. Every year, the show choir would sing a song called Fruitcake for Christmas. And the director clearly hated it because it was a tradition that he inherited. I'll be honest, the song was kind of fun. But it was also not a great song. It was just one of those kind of like trashy things you do because it's a holiday tradition. And I don't think it's done anymore. And honestly, I don't blame them because it didn't bring the director joy. And honestly, there are already so many traditions out there. We can afford to let some go. So I want to talk a little bit today about how we can change school traditions without getting an angry mob every time. And I want to start off by saying what I started the episode with is do not, especially if it's your first year in a new position, do not go changing everything all at once. That is going to be a really big disconnect, a really big shift, and that's going to cause a lot of tension. I'm not saying you can't make your program your own, but I think there's a line we need to follow because as music teachers, we are, whether we want to or not, we're kind of a pillar of the school. We are there for multiple grades. We are a constant in the lives of our students and a lot of times the families as well, because they get to understand what is, in third grade, we do this, in fourth grade, we do recorders, whatever that might be. So there's a few things that you can do to slowly make changes, but I would not recommend you doing any abrupt shifts. So one of the traditions that I changed in my school, I talked a little bit about this in episode 120, why I don't do Christmas concerts, but I inherited essentially a winter concert, a Christmas concert. The schedule was already made for me and it was, I think it was billed as a Christmas concert. My first year of teaching, I did one of the, I think it was like an Alfred Nutcracker little, canned production. It was cool. But it really didn't bring me joy. But listen to episode 120 and I'll talk more about that. What I learned from that experience is I did not find any joy in doing that kind of thing. And as I talked about in episode 120, there are a lot of different reasons why I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for me to put on a Christmas performance. But I also knew if I came in my first or second year and just tried to change it, there was likely going to be some tension, especially, I know the district that I teach in. I know, I kind of know what to expect. And you will likely know the same thing in your position, even if you've only been there for a little bit, you can kind of get a little bit of a read. So what I did is I slowly made some shifts, and I'll be honest, COVID kind of not helped. I'm not going to give COVID any credit. But COVID definitely threw a wrench in and kind of made it easier for me to make a shift. But so my first year of teaching, I did the Nutcracker performance. The year after that, I was like, I really don't want to do a Christmas performance. So I did a winter performance. And we did essentially different carols and things like that from around the world. And we used that as a way to get a little bit into more diverse repertoire and make it a little bit more of acceptance and, accepting of different cultures and different religious backgrounds and things like that. So after that second year where I did the, winter around the world, COVID happened. So we didn't have performances for a while. But then I was able to, when we were able to have things back in person, it took a while. That's when I started my folk dance night back up. So even before COVID, I was already making a shift. I knew that I wanted to make some sort of shift. I didn't know what that was going to be yet until I decided on the folk dance night. But I knew that the Christmas concert didn't sit right for me, especially knowing the students that I teach and knowing what what public education is and should be. But again, that's episode 120. So I knew that I wanted to have that. So that is kind of my first tip, if you're trying to change some school traditions, take baby steps. Don't change everything all at once. So if there is one tradition that you absolutely cannot stand, you can let it go. But I wouldn't recommend you let go of like all the traditions all at once, especially if you're not replacing them with new traditions. And that's a thing that I'm doing right now, which is I'm replacing that tradition of having a Christmas concert with the third grade gets to do an interactive folk dance night. And to me, that is a really cool experience. I know not everyone's going to feel that way, but there are just a lot of reasons why I think that's more of an accessible and just better for everyone kind of experience. But it's another tradition. It's still something for them to look forward to. It's still someone for them to say, oh, I remember in third grade when we did this. And that, or, maybe someone comes back a couple years later and they have a younger sibling and they're now learning things that they learned when they were in school, different things like that, that I think especially if you're going to remove traditions, see if you can replace them with ones that do bring you joy and that you kind of fit more with your educational philosophy. Another tip is to get all your main stakeholders on board. I'm really thankful that my principals have been really kind of understanding that let me run my program, which is great, and don't view my performances as like an event that the school is putting on. It's an event that I'm putting on as part of the school. So I have all the creative control, which I love. And little tangent, that's how it should be. I'm just going to say that there. But I want you to be really transparent with your administrators and be like, hey, I'm trying something new. That's exactly what I did with this folk dance night. I went into my principal's office and I said, hey, I'm trying something new. I think it's going to be really cool. I kind of walked her through it. I'm like, do you think this is something that the community would be on board with? And she's like, yeah, let's give it a try. So thankfully I have really supportive admin. So I really think it's important for you to get your stakeholders, get them on board. And then also just make your expectations clear. So in any sort of communication on the folk dance night, once it had shifted from a concert to a folk dance night, I was very clear that this was an active, interactive event, that students should be wearing tennis shoes, and parents and grownups and families are going to be invited to join us. I want everyone to know what they're getting into, especially when it's something new. One last thing I want to leave you with is, when you're thinking of changing a tradition, start by asking yourself why. Why is this something that I want to change? Why is this something that doesn't sit right with me? Is it because it was the former teacher that created it or that started it? Or, do you have an educational or social emotional learning or some sort of reason behind why you are opposed to continuing it? And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I think that it's important for us to realize that we are a part of a bigger picture. So sometimes we need to, for lack of better words, suck it up, and give students an experience, but also understanding that we are the educational professionals. We are the experts in the music field. We have that content specific pedagogical content knowledge. But just, I think it's good for us to start by just taking a step back and really kind of observing where we're coming from and really take note on how we're feeling and why we're feeling that way. So if I leave you with nothing else on this episode, is to try to take baby steps. You can make your program, but it will not happen overnight. If you try to make it happen overnight, it's just going to be a lot of chaos. And whatever you're doing, always keep it student-centered. Why are we changing this? Why are we doing this? Because that's what's best for the student. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the world to us if you were to leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. It really helps us understand what we want more of in the podcast, how we can improve it, and how we can really make it more honed to exactly what you are looking for as the elementary music teacher in your classroom. We put out episodes every Wednesday, so be sure to hit the subscribe button or the follow button wherever you're listening so that you get new episodes delivered to your phone right every week on Wednesday when we release something new. If you haven't already joined us inside That Music Teacher community, I would love to invite you to join us inside our content-specific professional development learning community, That Music Teacher community. Each month, you'll get a masterclass that allows you to dive deeper into a topic relating to elementary music, a template pack to help you take that masterclass concepts and actually apply it into your classrooms, as well as other bonuses throughout the week and out the month, where we're able to sprinkle some other things in there as well. On top of that, you also get a community of like-minded music educators that understand where you're coming from, so you can actually get off of Music Teacher Island and be surrounded by other people who understand what it means to be an elementary music teacher. With that being said, thank you so much for listening today. And if nobody has told you today, thank you so much for making an impact in the lives of the students that you teach. And thank you so much for spreading the love of music.